I'm going to show you how to make 2 gift tags and 2 Christmas cards with as little wastage as possible. I started out making gift tags and decided to make 2 in 1 to have as little waste material as possible. To begin, I went to the Shapes tab in Design Space and chose a cool shape that I thought would make a good gift tag. I then rotated it so it was the correct orientation for any writing I did. I resized the gift tags and luckily it didn't actually matter what size it ended up being, and I coloured it red to match the card I was using just so I could see what it would look like. I then needed a little hole that I would use to attach the gift tag to the present. I knew I wanted to use some chiffon ribbon that I already owned rather than string, so I made the hole quite big. I used a circle from the Shapes tab and resized it. Again, this didn't need to be any particular size. I then roughly positioned this on the tag so the hole wasn't going to be too close to the end of the tag, just in case it ripped. I actually then decided to make the tag bigger at 5.8 by 8.76 centimeters and the circle smaller to 0.5 by 0.5 centimeters. At that point, I highlighted the tag and circle and clicked align and centered vertically to make sure it was perfect. Once I was happy with my tag, I highlighted both again and clicked attach. Next, it was time for the writing. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to write, so for now I just opened up a text box and I wrote Merry Christmas. I then clicked on the style of the tab at the top and selected Writing. I then went to the Font tab and made sure I chose a writing style. I settled on Alyssa Stencil Script and resized my Merry Christmas to fit nicely on the tag. I then copied and pasted the text so I could easily use the same font and size and personalise my message. I would usually write the name of the person the gift was intended for as well as a little message, but as I made and filmed this a while before Christmas, I settled on having a space under Merry Christmas so I could write a name there. Hopefully you've already seen enough though to be able to personalise your tags. Once I was happy with the text, I highlighted the text and centered it horizontally. It's important not to center the text with the tag, especially if the shape is uneven like this one, or if you have a hole, as the writing won't look like it's in the center. So that part I kind of did by eye. Now for the fun part. Before I cut, I needed to double check each layer was set to cut or write as intended. This is visible on the right hand side. So my writing had draw written by it and the tag said basic cut. So this was all correct. I've been stung before, so I live by measure twice, cut once. And I'm sure I'll make that mistake again, but for now it was okay. After clicking make, I changed the project to 4 copies to make, well, 4 copies, and I also knew that I was using A4 card rather than card that fit the mat, so I moved the tags around to make sure that they would fit on the card. I loaded my card onto the blue mat. Now this is the light grip mat. I found in the past that if I use the green mat, it slightly pulls off layers of the card and it doesn't look as good in the end, whereas the blue one doesn't rip the card. I used the Brayer roller to flatten the card. I then loaded the black Cricut fine marker pen into clamp A and pressed go. Now I obviously waited really patiently and didn't just sit staring at the Cricut until it was finished. Once finished, I unloaded the mat and then turned it over and peeled the mat away from the card. I do this to stop the edges of the card curling up, so if you have that problem, flip it over and hopefully that will help. I checked everything over and luckily everything was perfect, so I just cut out a little piece of chiffon ribbon that I already owned, popped it through the tag hole, and there we have it, a beautiful gift tag. Oh wait, there's a little more, we will be back to this gift tag in just a little bit. I wanted this second gift tag to be very simple and pretty, so I just chose a rectangle from the Shapes tab. I sized this by eye and went for 5.06 by 7.59 centimeters. I knew I wanted this tag to have 2 layers, one of which was going to have a cutout, so I duplicated this rectangle. I picked out a few shapes for the cutout and settled on a star which I thought would be perfect for Christmas, and resized it to 3.93 by 3.74 centimeters. I dragged it on top of the gift tag rectangle and added another circle as with the previous gift tag for the hole. When I was happy with the sizing, I highlighted my tag and all of the shapes, clicked align and centered horizontally. I then clicked attach. I made a few other designs at the same time, but I didn't quite like them enough, so for now I just hid them so I could go over and press make to make this tag. I was using glitter cardstock for this, and this particular one is one I happened to have from many years of crafting, but I'll see if I can find something similar and pop the link in the description box. Once again, I fixed the card to the mat, rolled it, loaded it to the Cricut and pressed go. I had already taken out the Cricut marker at this point because I didn't want it to dry out. Once finished, I turned the mat over and really carefully peeled the cardstock off the mat to make sure the star stayed intact. I thought this star would be a perfect addition to our first gift tag. Back in Design Space, I duplicated the tag and removed the star as this was going to be the base layer, so I knew it needed to be exactly the same shape. I printed it once again in the same way as above. I chose to use the glitter cardstock for the top layer and something a little more plain for the base layer. Once printed, I lay the fancy tag on top of the other tag and tied them together with my handy chiffon ribbon. And there you have it. Of course, you'd want to write some sort of message on the base layer, but you get the idea. Now just briefly going back to our first gift tag, I used foam stickers to attach the star to a blank space on the gift tag to give it a nice 3D effect. If we're going to make gift tags, of course we need Christmas cards. I wanted the first card to have a cutout of a Christmas tree, so after searching in the Images tab, I added a few options to a new project. After quickly settling on one, I wrote Merry Christmas in a text box and changed the font to something a little more festive. I settled on a chunkier font, so I knew it was going to be easy for the Cricut to cut it out. I changed it to green so I could see the rough colour of the print, and then I added a rectangle over the top and sent it to the back so I could see what the card would look like. I measured my glittered cardstock and resized the rectangle, tree and wording so that I could fit 2 cards onto the cardstock that I had. I think this was A5 size. I highlighted and aligned everything horizontally and changed it to a better colour so I could see it properly. Now, I'm not going to lie to you, this was meant to be the front page of the card, and I faffed around for a really long time trying to make a card shape that would print well, and I couldn't do it, so I gave up. I decided just to print this one and see how it would look. So I attached my initial design and went to print. Now, at this point, you may or may not realise how this would print. Because the edge of the tree has a solid line, the Cricut would cut around the tree, but don't worry, we're going to keep that for card number 2. You can also weld designs like this to get a different cut if you want to. Once again, I printed everything as above and peeled off the card carefully to keep the tree intact. It was at this point that I realised the Merry Christmas text had printed perfectly. The plan was to throw it away, but I tried to use transfer tape to get it off the mat to reuse. I think the glitter on the cardstock wouldn't let it stick to the transfer tape, so I actually gave up. The letters did peel off the card, but it was honestly too much energy for me to do anything else with it. But please do let me know in the comments if you have better luck reusing these letters. Back in Design Space, I needed to make the base card. I made a rectangle with square edges twice the size of my original design. To make a fold in the card, I used a score line from the Shapes tab and ran this roughly down the centre of the card before centering. Now I knew I had a stylus tool, so I could definitely do this one, but if you don't have a stylus tool or a rotary blade, you can just fold this card by hand. Now because I made this card exactly twice the size of the cutout, it actually did not look good to have the base card the same size as the front design. However, because I was making 2 cards, I luckily managed to use this card for card number 2. So I went back to Design Space, resized this one slightly to make it bigger. I chose red cardstock to go with a glittery green, again perfect for Christmas. I attached the stylus to clamp A, as I did not have a scoring wheel, and I just changed this in the tools setting ahead of cutting. While the Cricut was still cutting, I attached foam sticker to the back of the front page of the first card I made and attached this to the bigger of the red card. I then filled in any gaps like dotting the I with a matching pen. And card number 1 was finished. For the smaller card, I used a cocktail stick to apply glue to the back of the cutout Christmas tree so the glue wouldn't go anywhere. I then left it to dry, and I had 2 very pretty Christmas cards, luckily with very little wastage. Of course, you then need to write your message, but I don't think I need to show you how to do that. Luckily, I didn't need to make an envelope because I have about 100 left over. Let's just say COVID, let's just say cancelled wedding, and leave it at that. So which one is your favourite and which one are you going to try to make?